Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Kirtana,
I'm Rohan.
and Rohan is back today after a big
Yep.
break. How are you doing?
Doing good. It's good to be back. I missed a lot, but can't wait to get back into it.
Yeah, welcome back. Today we are talking about Jigra, that is
Yep.
currently streaming on Netflix.
Yep. And this movie, again, IMDb logline is when Ankura is wrongfully imprisoned and sentenced to death in a foreign country, his steely sister, Satya, is driven by a lethal resolve to break him free. Uh, yeah. What did you think about this movie, and have you seen any of Vasanbala's other works?
I mean, Vasant Bala I know is very celebrated, but I've only seen Raman Raghav, which was a Nawazuddin Siddiqui film that came out a while ago, and he was a writer on that. How about you?
I've seen quite a. I've seen all of the features that he directed, I believe,
Hmm.
um, which are "Mard Ko Dard Nahi Hota Hai" or "The Man Who Feels No Pain," "Monica, Oh
Hmm.
My Darling," and now Jigra. I saw
Yeah.
his episode of Ray. I have not seen Cinema Marte Dam Tak.
Hmm.
But I've also seen a couple of things that he wrote or helped write. The Lunchbox, 83. Um, I thought those were quite good, and I've been
Hmm.
kind of a fan of him. So you haven't seen 83?
I have not, no.
Really? I thought you recommended it to me. But
Wait, what?
the cricket movie, 83,
Oh shit, yes, but I didn't know he
he
would.
wrote
What did
it.
he? It's not in
Or
his
he credited with
filmography.
screenplay.
Yeah, I liked 83 a lot actually.
Yeah.
So I guess I like his films. No, but I've only heard good stuff, and we know that Kevin is a big fan of Monica, Oh My Darling. I think it's mentioned very often in
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
uh,
Um,
offices.
to almost to the degree that we should cover it by now, but
Yeah,
I think maybe we should.
yeah. No, I don't mind watching it. But yeah, Jigra I thought was great. I enjoyed everything about it.
Yeah,
Um,
I was very excited for this movie. Purely, well, it wasn't Bala, but it's also Alia Bhatt.
mhm,
And I it's funny because before seeing it, I didn't even know what it was about. I was just
mhm,
like, it's the two of them, so I know I'm gonna watch it.
mhm,
Um, and it's not my favorite from him. I still think Monica, Oh My Darling is my favorite, but I
mhm.
thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
I think it was just such a tight screenplay. It was like very, very hard for me to because once I watched it, like I was prepping for this and like it was so hard for me to like think about like what could have possibly been different. Because to
Yeah,
me, like every character choice made sense, every world
mhm.
building element made sense, like everything was it was a solid, like very well packaged screenplay.
I would have. So you mentioned world building.
Hmm.
First of all, I agree with you on the character stuff. Um, I think they all work. I had my personal issues with one character,
Hmm.
but nothing wrong with the performance, nothing wrong with the writing of that character.
Hmm.
I just, um, it's just one of those characters that you hate, but you're supposed to hate them, so it
Yeah,
works. It's it was the character who used to be uh, a cop himself.
yeah, Muttu.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Again, it's just he keeps getting in the way, and it's like yo, stop already. Um, but I really but you, oops, I'll turn those up. But you mentioned world building, and I
Hmm.
think that's where I have some issues with this movie
Hmm.
because I think there could have just been a little bit more. For this movie takes place, or most of it takes place in the country of is it Hangshidao
I think so. Yeah.
or Hanshidao?
I think it's
It's not a
Hanshida.
real country,
Hmm.
uh, so that's why I don't exactly remember the name. But I think there should have been a little bit more about that country. It's first of all the fact that a country where you have that little because I mean the bag of whatever drug it was, it's not a very there wasn't a lot. So a
Mm-hmm.
country where that is an automatic death penalty,
Mm-hmm.
and a country where there's like a revolution happening,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I guess it's tyranny. I think a lot of that was a little bit muddled. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think if we got just one scene or just a
Mm-hmm.
couple of lines of dialogue more in the beginning establishing what this country is, it would have just I think it would have enhanced the movie a little bit.
I see what you're saying. Personally, I bought into the central relationship and the main conflict so much. So I was just so like, I bought into it so much that I didn't like, I'm gonna say I just didn't have the bandwidth to think about the questions that you have. Maybe in hindsight, I see the logic behind those questions, but it didn't get in the way of my viewing experience. Um, I thought like most elements of the entire film, they were done really, really well.
Mhm.
And it kept me immersed throughout. Um, I thought Alia Bhatt's performance was great.
Yeah, I actually I liked her, and I liked Vedang Raina also.
Mhm.
I think their chemistry was super
Yeah.
strong, and in this movie you kind of had to have that because you can have all this cool action, uh,
Mhm.
cool music, editing choices, but if that chemistry doesn't work, the movie falls apart.
What did you think of when they kept cutting back? Like in like a very emotional moment, they would cut back to like their childhood to give us some exposition and also just to
Yeah,
kind of hit you in the feels. I thought that was really effective. I'm usually not a fan of when films do that. But I thought in this film they picked the right moments to place those cutaways, and I thought it was very, very useful.
I agree. I think I mean it was a little hard to watch at times because the thing that they're cutting away to is a super emotional event, and
Yeah.
they don't really shy away from it. Like the
Hmm.
camera doesn't turn, you see it happen,
Yeah.
which for context, it is it's a cut of their father taking his own life.
Hmm.
Um, so normally normally I hesitate.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm okay with the cuts back to show something and give us context, but I hesitate when it comes to something of that nature. Um,
Hmm.
but I think the movie pulls it off. I think before it gets too overwhelming, it would immediately cut back to the present and show you what's happening. But I also think it helped a lot to get into Satya's head. This is
Hmm.
something anime does all the time. It's
Yeah.
you're in the middle of an epic fight scene, and then cut to like this character's childhood, and then cut back to the fight scene. Um,
Hmm.
and it always works, but it always makes you more invested in the character. It just provides you just a little bit. It just hits you better, kind of like we said. It hits you in the feels.
Yeah, I think it answers the why. And I think after a point, I almost got to the stage where like when I saw a flashback, I knew that like a decision was coming.
Yep.
Um, which is very interesting from just a writing perspective, because I imagine it was written that way before like a big turn they placed one of these scenes.
Yeah.
And it really helped, like you said, get into her head. I thought the other performances were good too. I thought Rahul Ravindran was great. He plays Muthu, and you
Yep.
do hate him. His
Yeah.
death
Like you're supposed
was
to.
hard. Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
was it?
I still felt bad. Yeah. I
Oh
thought,
no, I cheered.
oh my God. No, I mean, I see like where your frustrations are coming from. And I
Mhm.
think that just goes to the credit of the filmmakers because it worked really well. I felt bad
Yeah.
because he was still like a cool character.
Hmm.
But like again, like where it was placed, how they worked with it, I thought it was all done so expertly that it's hard to find issue with anything.
Yeah, I
Um,
think sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah. I think if we're talking about performances, Manoj Bava is who plays Bhatti uncle.
Hmm.
Uh always great to see it whenever he appears on screen in any
Yeah.
movie. I'm like, yeah. Because he always brings just something interesting, many times
Hmm.
comedically.
Mhm.
And his death is the one that really hit me.
Yeah, and then he said, "I'm a tiger," and then he just like went. Oh my God. Yeah,
Yeah,
it was.
and then Vivek Gomber, if I pronounce his last name wrong, that's my bad. Who plays the villain Hans Raj
Yeah.
Landa, which Hans Landa from Inglourious Basterds, kind of an Easter egg. Oh, he was so great.
Yeah, he was amazing. When he says there's that one dialogue where he's like, if my great grandfather was alive, he would understand what you're saying. That was just because initially when they introduce you to the character, I think like they want it's a mislead. Like they want you to think this guy's gonna be on your side because he's like Indian and he's in this country and all that stuff. Because he even like he's even nice to like Vedang Raina's character in their first
Yeah,
interaction. And then he
for a
just becomes
second.
an asshole. Oh my God. It was
Mhm.
so good. And it was so true to that character, I thought. Like all his
Yeah.
behavior was like none of it was convenient. It was very well
Yep.
like planted.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And his character name is an Easter egg to Hans Landa from Inglourious Basterds, and even his performance, because it's if you've seen Inglourious Basterds, the Christoph Waltz
Mhm.
character
Mhm.
uh, is he's an evil man,
Mhm.
but he has a personality, and I got to be careful about how I say this, but he has a personality of like, oh, I'm just a chill guy, you know. I just like
Mhm.
my milk or whatever, and and he's always laughing, but he's laughing while killing people. Uh,
Mhm.
Same here with Hans Raj uh,
Mhm.
Lando. I don't know if I
Yeah.
should say Landa or Lunda, but whatever.
Yeah.
And, speaking of Easter eggs, there's others in this movie. I mean, I know uh, some of the prisoners are named Wong Kar Wai, uh, John Woo. There was another one which are all um, kind of famous filmmakers who have come out
Mhm.
of uh, Hong Kong that I'm guessing Bala is inspired by.
Mhm. Yeah. I know that the film was received very well both in theaters and online. Um, Interestingly, there was also like a little bit of a controversy when this film came out. Have you heard about it? The film was like very well received in the theaters and when it came out on Netflix, but there was quite some controversy when the film came out because there's this other actress. Her name is Divya Khosla, I think, and she also made a film about a brother and sister, I think, or about a prison break. And
Oh yes.
yeah, so she came out and she said that this had been copied from her film.
Mhm.
And what she also did was she went to a movie theater where Jigra was playing and she recorded what looked like an empty theater and she put it up and she was like, Alia Bhatt is fudging her numbers. She bought all of her own tickets and now she's saying that her movies made money. And like that became a huge thing and a bunch of movie like news channels picked it up. There was a lot of noise and I think it ultimately worked in favor of the film because I'm pretty sure that that brought in some audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think we should address it in two ways. I'm going to address the second part first, which is going to the theater and assuming that and alleging that someone is faking their numbers.
Hmm.
Uh, I mean, Mufasa just came out at the time of recording. Mufasa and Sonic just came out. I'm pretty sure I can find a screening of those at like some obscure time and be like,
Hmm.
"Hey, look, there's nobody here." Oh, but Disney's saying they made this much money. They must
Yeah.
be lying.
Yeah.
I think that's yeah. I think it's a little bit of a. It's like complaining about the referees when your team loses. It's a
Yeah.
little bit of a loser mentality. Uh,
Yeah.
as for as for the saying that hey, this movie is very similar, I actually did hear that
Hmm.
um from now I have not seen the other movie that it's allegedly
Hmm.
similar to.
Yeah.
So from what I have heard from people who have seen both, they
Hmm.
say it's similar in kind of the concept and logline only, but in
Hmm.
terms of the entire story and like dialogue and style,
Mhm.
it's pretty different.
Yeah, because like that's the thing. Like I think log lines being similar or like basic premises or concepts being similar is not unheard of.
Yeah.
The same conversation happened when Lapata Ladies started doing well, because there was another filmmaker whose name I cannot recall, who came out saying that he made a television movie, I think in the 90s, and that Lapata Ladies was a copy of that. So it's very possible for two people to have similar ideas. I think what matters is the treatment of the film. Um,
Yeah.
and I think more often than not, you can really tell when something is an actual copy of something else.
Speaking of copying, my uh, breakthrough question for you guys was actually going to be related to the film that it
Mm-hmm.
was, well, that Google says it's based on. Um, uh, Gumra or Gumra. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not sure if that was the TV movie you were referencing.
Was that
Um,
the Lapata Ladies one?
No,
no,
Oh,
but
Gumra, Sanjay Dutt.
oh, yeah, I have no
but the
idea.
reason why I was bringing it up was because it says that the original story involved a brother saving a sister, and that the difference here in Jigra is that it's the sister saving the brother. Um, and notably, it seems that the original film.
Has the Jigra team officially said that they were inspired by Ghumra?
I honestly don't know.
Mm-hmm.
My source for this
From
is the Times of India, by the way.
Okay. If it was a remake and if the gender switch is what made it work, then good for them. Uh, for like all, I had no idea about this context behind this film. It worked very well on its own.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
now,
yeah, I haven't seen the original.
mhm.
Um, it is funny though because it that is directed by Mahesh Bhatt, and this movie stars
Alia
his
Bhatt,
daughter
yeah.
Alia Bhatt.
Wait, I mean, then
Uh,
maybe it is. Maybe there was some swapping of rights somewhere there. I don't know.
Potentially,
Mhm. Now, okay, making old films with new spins. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, like at all.
I agree.
I think there's still new stories. I think it becomes an issue when like the only films that like people are willing to fund are ones with proven IP. Like I think that's when the problem comes in. But at the end of the day, films are business enterprises. They want to make money. So you can't argue against someone wanting to do that.
I agree. I mean, it's a little bit like saying every boxing movie is a remake
Mhm.
of Rocky.
Right, right, right,
Um,
right.
of course, there's going to be similarities, but I think uh, I think making a movie that's similar, uh, nothing wrong with it. And I can always guarantee that style, in terms of style, it's not similar.
Hmm. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's. I think one thing that I'm going to take that again. Um, I think one thing that really worked for me is that both of them, they didn't come across as like helpless. Like even when Vedang Raina was in prison and like was going to get killed, there was just yeah, there was definitely like empathy, but it was never like pity because he
Yeah.
definitely held his own and they were both very active characters who were like pursuing something with a passion throughout, and I think that helped me stay rooted in the story and keep hope, for these characters throughout.
Yeah, he wasn't just, they didn't just cut away to him
Hmm.
crying and suffering and doing nothing. It
Yeah.
was they're cutting away to him
Hmm.
while she was trying to break in and get him out, he was trying to break out himself. Which actually brings up one thing that I wanted to bring up, which is it wasn't an issue for me, but a lot of people have the issue of conveniences in this film. Conveniences and lack of realism, which
Hmm.
are they're saying, "Oh, how convenient is it that the the people that are trying to break out of the jail are all three of them are working together, and then they have relatives on the outside where all three of them are working together to break them
Hmm.
out."
Yeah, I think that was I was gonna bring that up as well because I think if I had to pick an element that I didn't totally love about this film, it would have been that. It just felt convenient that the like it just felt like it was written
Mhm.
in those scenes. I think the solve was very easy. I think it could have been just one conversation between maybe Satya and what's his name?
Ankur.
Ankur. Yeah. Between Satya and
But you
Ankur where
can't
she
do that.
says, huh?
You can't do that though, because they're probably listening to all the conversations.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess I guess that was my only like issue with it. Um, Outside of that, I thought it was everything worked really well. And it didn't bother you. You didn't think that it almost felt like plot armor.
It didn't bother me because of the style of this movie. It's
Mm-hmm.
just this movie is clearly going for it's the super stylized, completely fictional,
Mm-hmm.
uh like
Genre
kind of
film.
intense thriller.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they do something like that, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't bother me so much. I know it's a little bit of a convenience, but it doesn't bother me. And actually that convenience it it hurts them because
Mm-hmm.
uh then their plans are because if it wasn't like that and they're just kind of going with the flow,
Mm-hmm.
then their plans would have worked out. But because of the fact that they're both having individual plans, it actually makes
Mm-hmm.
that first escape attempt a failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that actually, even though it is convenient, it's also like, well, it works because it screws them over.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean it did stick out to me. I did wonder how that relationship happened. But like you said, ultimately it makes sense with the plot. So it's not as big an issue as it potentially could have been.
Yeah.
Um, I also
What about the
really like
realism? Oh, sorry.
um what part of it did they say that prison should have been more brutal?
I
Because
have heard, um, and I think this can become a broader conversation because one of the complaints that I've heard that
Mhm,
wasn't wasn't an issue for me is the fact
mhm,
that, or is that people thought this movie was unrealistic with the amount that it's kind of the amount that Satya was able to accomplish by herself, or
ah,
it's they felt that, oh my god, like kind of getting a giant truck, making all these explosions, being able to break into the prison and then out, um, almost single handedly, that felt unrealistic.
um,
Um,
it didn't bump for me at all,
okay,
actually. Like I think.
it didn't for me either.
Mhm,
There's actually times where when she's fighting,
mhm,
she's not doing the Salman Khan of one punch and the guy goes flying
mhm,
30 feet.
mhm.
Um, was it
It's
over the top? Yes, but
mhm.
I don't think it was. It never crossed the line into just absolute stupidity.
I think if I had to describe Alia Bhatt's character in one word, I would say she's relentless, right?
Mhm.
She's relentless and she's stubborn and she has this mission. It's her brother. Like I think all those motivations put together in that
Yeah,
person, the drive that she has, I think justifies everything she achieves. Like it was not hard for me to buy at all. Um, yeah, like it didn't bump. I thought like there was reasoning behind how she got all the little like all the equipment that she did or like all the facilities that she had access to. Um, no, it didn't bump for me even slightly.
I agree. And I think there's a little bit of a larger conversation because the people uh that were criticizing this movie for being unrealistic, the same
Hmm.
people, and I'm not going to name names, but they were raving about Animal,
Yeah.
uh, Fighter,
Yeah,
and Pushpa, both one and two.
exactly.
Um,
So, I mean, is this a sexism problem? Maybe.
that's what I was going to bring up
Uh,
because those movies are way more unrealistic
mhm.
in terms of how uh, the action plays out. but
Yeah.
the same people were loving those movies, and I do think it is. I I do think it is sexism, even when they're not. Maybe they may not even be realizing it, but
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the obvious answer is sexism. But
yeah,
if we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, which I usually don't, but if we want to give people the benefit of the doubt, um, if we want to give people benefit of, oh my God, my mouth. Okay. Uh, if we want to assume the best in people and say that they are not, this is not coming from a place of sexism, I think still within the world, it works for me. Um,
yeah,
like none of it, it was not like, oh, she needed this one thing and it just appeared out of nowhere, or like someone walked in with a
exactly.
solution. There was none of that. Even at the end, when the Malaysian like authorities like helped them out, like we see Muthu go and plant that seed. So it's
Yeah,
like it's not like their problems come from coincidences, but their solutions never do. So I think that solves all these problems for me.
yeah, and that's actually the old Pixar writing
Mhm.
rule where I don't know, I can't remember word for word, but it's something along the lines of if you're gonna have coincidences that get your
Mhm.
characters into trouble, that's
Mhm.
good, but never
Yeah,
make coincidences get your characters at trouble.
yeah. What would you say was your favorite element in this film?
I think the central relationship between
Mhm.
Ankur and Satya. I
Mhm.
think that kind of mentioned it before, but you could have John Wick or raid level action scenes in this
Mhm.
movie.
Mhm.
You could have amazing music, which by the way, the music was awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, you could have all of that, but if
Mhm.
you do not have a strong central relationship,
Mhm.
then none of it works. And I think the movie establishes it quite well. First of all, just showing. First of all, it always helps when you have good actors who have good chemistry, but
Mhm.
also starting the movie with the traumatic event that happens to the both of them.
Mhm.
And immediately, even in that moment, you see a young Satya try to protect
Yeah.
a young Ankur.
Mhm.
And then you cut to when they're older,
Mhm.
and even then, Satya is always like, "Hey, be careful around Kabir," which is Ankur's friend.
Mhm.
Uh, Initially, she doesn't want him to go to the party. He does, and they play a little basketball game. No, you can argue. I don't think either of their skills are convincing on screen. Uh, the
Mhm.
game works as it was just a fun little way of getting the two of them, or
Mhm.
just showing their relationship,
Mhm.
and just the way that they played it. It wasn't just straightforward. They did all the dirty tactics that siblings do,
Yeah.
and then even when something great happens for Ungood, it's
Mhm.
she she kind of knows that hey, this country is maybe not the safest, so she's still
Mhm.
trying to protect him. And
Yeah.
then, of course, when shit goes down and she is just burning, literally
Mhm.
everything.
In a
Uh,
way. Yeah.
so so yeah, this movie kind of hinges on that relationship, and I think just in what I think everything I described was maybe 20 minutes max
Mhm. Mhm.
of the movie. I think the movie establishes it so well.
Yeah. I think to add on to that, there's also like many character moments for Alia Bhatt's character especially, which establishes like who she is as a person. Like there's a line in there where she says, yeah, so like you follow the rules, I don't. Like that's it.
Mhm.
Like that's the end. Like that is why I'm making the decisions I'm making because I don't care about the rules. I care about my brother. And I
Yeah.
thought things like that really strengthened their relationship throughout.
Mhm.
I like the fight choreography through the film, which is
It was
interesting
great.
because that's what like if people think it's unrealistic, like fight me because I thought one of the reasons it worked really well was because she was not great at them. Like it's like she's not coming in like executing like perfect martial art. Like
Yeah.
she's not like like the first punch is not hitting them like square in the face. Especially in that fight scene with Muthu. Both
Yep.
there's two separate scenes, right? There's one where she gets him on his side, and then there's one where she kills him essentially. I love that they didn't hold back. Like it was a real like bloody fight, and she took her punches. She only
Yep.
survived because she persevered harder than he did. Like that's how I viewed that scene.
Yeah.
And I think that was consistent throughout the film with every fight sequence that she's a part of. She wins because she persevered. Like she's
Yeah.
able to deal with more than her opponent is. And I think that also translates on on Vedang's side of the story, where he's not great at it either. Like I thought it was extremely realistic in the way they behaved with their
Yeah.
environment, especially in those sequences. Yeah.
Yep. And just to kind of build on, it's also the way that I think it was filmed, like some of the camera movements,
Mhm.
when Muthu and Satya fall
Yeah.
or start to fall off, just
Hmm.
that sudden pullback,
Yeah.
to show, oh, this is where they are. I think
Hmm.
my one of my favorite shots is when she hits Landa with the rubber bullet right on his neck,
Hmm.
or not the rubber bullet. It's the she's using a smoke grenade
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
launcher, and she hits him right on the neck. And just the way it was filmed, you could just feel that impact. He should not be
Mhm.
standing after
Yeah.
that, by the way. But if it was like on his chest or his arms or something, that's
Mhm.
fine. On the neck, but whatever.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
just fantastic choreography.
mhm. And I think I also appreciated that I could keep track of what was happening because many times
Yes.
in these fight sequences, what happens is the POV gets ruined because it's just a bunch of like cool shots. And I get it. Like having edited, I know how hard it is to put a fight sequence together. But um, I think it becomes hard to follow sometimes.
Mm,
And this film was really good with the way they presented those sequences to us.
yeah. And the editing in general was awesome. I mean, some of the transitions were so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I know at the beginning there's a character who lights a cigar, and
Mm-hmm.
then the lighting of the cigar transitions into fireworks
Mm-hmm.
to go to the next scene.
Yeah. In terms of editing choices, I also really like the fact that they did not like sit in moments for too long. They didn't spoon feed the audience information. Like they said a thing, they made a point, and then that's it. They moved on to the next one. Because a lot of times you'll see films like making a point and then showing you that point, and then
Yeah.
and only then like proceeding with the story. There was none of that in this film. It was super tight,
Mhm.
and I really enjoyed it. All right, let's move on to our ratings then. Do you want to do the intro or?
Sure.
Okay. All
Sure.
right, let's
All
move on
right.
to our
So,
ratings. Sorry. Okay, let's move on to our ratings.
all right. So if you're new, uh, this is basically. Sorry. Let me get that again.
Mhm.
All right. So if you're new to this podcast, the way we rate things are on the script coverage scale. There's pass when we don't think it's a good movie, consider when we think it's pretty good, and then recommend when we think it's genuinely great. As a reminder, this is not an actual recommendation, it's just a score. So, with that said, how do you rate Jigra?
A strong recommend. Uh, I loved it. How about you?
Oh, I agree. I think this is easily a strong recommend. I think just everything about this movie works.
Mhm.
Of course, the essential relationship, but also just the style, the cinematography, the editing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, it's this is the kind of movies, when it comes to action movies, I want more of this and less of things like Fighter or Patan or
Mhm.
Ik the Tiger.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the skill is there. I think it's just the
Yep.
willingness to write, like
Mhm.
to just spend the time on a script, I think is what I'm missing personally from a lot of films we've seen this year.
Now, what would you like to recommend for fans of Jigra?
I have this Tamil film I want to talk about. It's called Kaidi. It is it's old-ish. It's a story about this prisoner who is one day from being released, or he's like just been released, and he's asked to help out with one last task, which is to drive a police officer from one place to another. And through that, he gets caught in this huge like gang war that's happening. It's a really cool film, and everyone should check it out. It definitely feels the same as Jigra did. So yeah, my recommendation is Kaidi. How about you?
That sounds awesome.
Hmm?
So I'm gonna recommend, if you haven't seen it already, which I know someone on this podcast hasn't, I'm gonna recommend Monica, Oh My Darling. It's also it's also a Vasanbala movie. I think this is the first one that I saw that he directed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and oh, it's great. I mean, I love Jigra. I think Monica, Oh My Darling is even better. That's how much I love this movie. It's just, and I talk about style. I think that movie, without spoiling it,
Mm-hmm.
just has it's. I don't know if I've seen anything else like it. Uh, Everything about it, whether it's the music, uh, the cinematography, the
Mm-hmm.
editing, it all works so well in
Mm-hmm.
a movie where the central story is relatively simple, uh, but it's the way it's presented makes it really special. So yeah, I highly
Mm-hmm.
recommend that movie.
Sounds very interesting. Maybe I'll watch it. I'll watch it. I'll watch it. I think it's been recommended enough, so I'll watch it. What else have you been watching?
So I just finished Cobra Kai. Uh, it's season 6, part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I love Cobra Kai, and I think it was interesting because I was loving this part of the season up until the last like 10 seconds. They make
Mm-hmm.
a decision where I think the show abandons reality at times, which I don't mind. It's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
They made a decision that went a little too far, in my opinion. Now let's see how part 3 turns out. But yeah, I was not on board for those last 10 seconds. Other than that, it was great.
um, I also heard that there's going to be characters from Cobra Kai that are going to show up in the new Karate Kid movie. Did you
Yeah, I
look
think
into
it's just
that?
going to be Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Sounds fun. That's another show I haven't watched. This week I watched Moana 2, and I loved it. Um,
Nice.
yeah, and I know people said that, oh, it's not as good as Moana 1. I thought the movie was fantastic, and I've been missing like a good animated, like good film, you know. This one was great. I loved it. I recommend it to everyone. Please check it out if you want to. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode of the Pages to Pixels podcast. I'm Kirtana,
I'm Rohan.
and we will see you again next week with a brand new episode. Thank you for watching.
Thank you.